Well, as we set up for the beginning of the World Economic Forum, I have Saadia Zahidi with me. She's Managing Director of the World Economic Forum and, of course, an economist. And what better time, Saadia, than to speak about what's happening in the world. I'm going to start with the context of this conversation. This event is important every year, but this year with the US president coming in, so many leaders coming in, what do you think is the biggest message out there?
You know, as a curtain raiser for this meeting, we launched last week our Global Risk Report. Number one on the concerns for 2026, geo-economic confrontation. Number two, state-based armed conflict. So about 30% of our respondents, their big concern is about geopolitical and geo-economic matters. So I think that is front and center of this meeting and provides the context within which we are bringing leaders together, having them talk to each other, and overall focused on this theme, a spirit of dialogue.
I'm wondering what is the option that leaders will really have, because right now the geopolitical concerns that you're talking about seem to be emanating from one quarter and are very unpredictable. Is there, through your conversations, any recipe for how leaders are thinking about approaching this?
Well, I think as we've seen throughout economic history, any moment of turbulence also leads to some element of, let's say, creative destruction or some element of opportunity for others. So what we've seen from our chief economist survey is that over 90% of them expect that what's going to peak right now is bilateral trade agreements and unilateral or regional trade agreements. So there is suddenly going to be a lot more impetus and a lot more opportunity, particularly from countries from the global south, to be connecting with each other and to be signing a lot more deals and agreements with each other. So I think there are opportunities in this moment, and yet at the same time we do also have to fix on thinking about how to collaborate with each other, continuing the kind of economic cooperation that we've had in the past. Because if we were to be in a world that was fully economically nationalistic, or if we were to be in a world in which everybody aimed to only focus on producing everything themselves, it simply would not actually work, and it would take away the opportunity and livelihoods for so many people around the world.
Yeah, so that's sort of what India is doing as well, signing FTAs. Just one point on the impact of what we've seen on tariffs. The US economy seems to be doing fine. The world economy may be suffering, but the US economy is doing fine. Is there any economic incentive for that government to walk back?
So I think a number of different things here. So yes, we are entering 2026 with a much more resilient economy than had been predicted in the past. Now there are some who would say, and the jury's out on this, we see from our chief economist community sort of a very uncertain picture about, these are world experts, and about half of them expect that things are going to become bleaker over the coming year. So still over 50% are expecting that things are going to becoming bleaker. So I don't think we're out of the woods on that front. But on the other hand, you do also see, to your point, much more resilience than we had been predicting. And some people believe that this is because there were enough stockpiles of goods in the past that the price impact of the current tariffs has not yet been passed on to consumers, and that some of that reckoning still has to come. Now that's one viewpoint. I'm not saying to you that's my viewpoint, but that is one viewpoint that we are seeing from our chief economist community. So I think the jury is still out as to what will happen. But then let's also look at what is happening in the rest of the world. To the point that we've just made, because there will be so many more agreements, FDI flows between other countries, again, there could be opportunity. But number one risk remains geo-economic confrontation, not just in the form of tariffs. Investment screening, control of critical resources, control of supply chains. This type of competition can be, in the medium to long term, even if it isn't in the short term, relatively damaging to all parties concerned.
Absolutely. Last question. When you talk about global risk, we've talked about geopolitics. What about AI? Is there any way to envision what is the extent of global risk? Because the spectrum goes from not really to Armageddon, depending on who you speak to.
Yeah. So there's two elements that I'll talk about. One is the concern around asset bubbles that is going up. So that shoots up by 8 places in the rankings. So there is starting to be, now it's still in the middle of the rankings. It's still between 10 and 20 out of the 33 risks that we look at, but it is a rising concern. And I think it's always important to focus on what is starting to be a rising concern. So this question around asset bubbles. Then there's the second piece, which is coming from our chief economist economist community, they believe, again, the jury's out among them as well as to whether this is truly a bubble or not, but they believe that if it is a bubble, and if it does burst, then 73% of them believe that it would have an outsized economic impact across the global economy, not just limited to certain firms. So that's on the economic side of it. Then there's the human side of it, and that is where in the short term, there aren't really very deep concerns when it comes to the adverse effects of frontier technologies, including AI. But in the longer term, this is one of the risks that jumps up from number 30 to number 5 in the 10-year time frame. So 25 spots over the next 8 years or so. And I think that is really because of the concerns around labor markets, concerns around mental health, and concerns around the use of artificial intelligence in weapons and warfare, especially in a world that has much more conflict. So that overall is the picture we're seeing.
All right. Thank you so much, Saadia, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.